This segment is all about preparing your business for exiting. Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial, and this segment's brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. Joining me on this segment is David Prowse. He's the principal of Velorum Business Advisory. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you having me on.
Tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of clients that you help?
Great question. So I am really focused on helping small to medium-sized business owners. I think the target would be perhaps, over $1 million in revenues, maybe up to like about $20 million in revenues. And ideally somebody who is about 3 to 5 years away from exit. So I'm not a business broker. I am a holistic exit planner.
So the idea of this series is really to put a spotlight on the importance of exit planning, because we find that a lot of business owners aren't really aware of it. Can you kind of tell us, like, when you first meet with a business owner, how prepared do you feel they are to sell their businesses, and what are kind of the preconceived notions in their mind?
I think for most business owners that I run into, they generally have a business that's probably very strong in some areas, but have a lot of weaknesses and blind spots that they're not aware of. So what we're trying to sort of identify through the holistic exit planning process is sort of identify to what degree is this business ready to actually transfer, and from the personal side as well. To what degree are they emotionally and mentally ready to transfer, dealing with considering different exit options that are available to them. We have the emotional question of what's next. And a lot of times owners have not thought about that. And you would be surprised as well how few of them have even have like a trusted financial advisor. How they even talked about something like, the retirement plan and how that correlates with what their business is worth right now. Or if they have business partners, do they have a buy-sell agreement or a shareholders agreement? Are they set up to take advantage of some of the tax advantages that are available to them before they exit? So I'd say, most of them are probably not really very well educated, although it's slowly improving over time. But that's a good opportunity for me to come in, just to start the education process and to really sort of figure out, well, what are the real pain points for the owner, and let's start diving into those areas.
Yeah. Before we dive into some of those areas specifically, what are some of the dangers or the pitfalls business owners face if they neglect to put any importance into this planning stage?
Well, I mean, the statistics don't lie, Mark. But 75-80% of businesses listed don't sell. So that's a really very scary statistic. And then if you think about family transfers, the statistics moving on to the second generation and the third generations are very poor. Like when you move on to the third generation of a family business, it's like less than 5% success rate. So so number one, if you really want to harvest the wealth from your business, it's incredibly important to set aside a plan and to think about, how can I improve this business? How can I make this transition more successful, whether it's external or internal, doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong answer there, but it's just about preparing it, figuring out, well, what really needs to be done. Because the reality is, for exit planning, there's a lot of gears in motion, and it's helpful for someone like me to come along, because my role is really help them see what the big picture is and keep them accountable to a defined plan that we've come up with.
So now, to sort of give them a 10,000-foot view of those areas you cover, tell us kind of like, what are some of the big areas that you help them with, and what are some of the things that are like neglected or mistakes that they make in those areas?
I would say, one of the biggest misconceptions is about valuation. I'm a financial person by background. I'm a CPA and also do business valuation work. And I think business owners generally have a poor understanding of what actually goes into the valuation of their business. So I think that's during the initial project. I think that's very important to sort of understand, what's really driving your current valuation, but more importantly, though, what is the potential valuation of that business if they entered into some sort of value creation program that I'm going to recommend to them. And so that's number one. Number two, you think about it from the tax planning side and just protecting your wealth, getting the insurance set up, getting your buy sell agreement properly set up is important. But also, I think one of the biggest areas that really doesn't get addressed historically has been the mental and emotional side. So a lot of owners, are going to have difficulty sometimes with different particular consequences of different exit options. For example, you could sell to private equity, which is probably the most lucrative, but it probably has the most strings attached. So what are those strings attached, and how do you feel about that? The other side of the equation could be you might prefer an internal exit, maybe selling to your management team. But the real question is your management team ready to take over now? If not, what needs to be done to sort of fill in the gaps? And how much time do you have? Are you okay with a phased-in exit? Because most of the times it's not going to be a quick exit. It's probably going to be a phased-in one. So maybe that might fit in with your plans, or it might not. There's all sorts of different factors. So I think it's important to sort of identify, not just the quantitative factors, but the qualitative factors that go into the exit. Because the reality is that somewhere down the line, you are going to face those factors. You're going to have to think about some of the emotional factors that go into an exit. And if you haven't addressed them, this is where we start to see some friction when we get closer to the exit date.
Really great insights. David, what inspired you to get into this field and help business owners planning their exits? How did you get started?
Well, I was a background in very much financial business valuation work, and saw a presentation of an exit planner here in the Toronto area, and it really inspired me because it was getting into the concept of adding in value creation into the exit planning process. And I could see, based on demographics, there was a lot of people that really would need this help. And I really wanted to focus my business solely on that afterward, because I just felt that you think about how important it is for, just the economy as a whole, and just, just our nation as a whole, being able to successfully, help those business owners transfer, considering how much of their wealth is tied up in the business. I just sort of felt that it was, I come from a background where I really have always tried to serve my clients, and I felt that this was probably on a going forward basis, the number one area that I wanted to focus in on. And I think, if I can help somebody, improve the value of the business, or just mentally, feel better about their particular exit and give them some clarity, then I think I've accomplished a lot.
Before I ask you my last question, in regards to exit planning, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is really important to share with business owners?
Well, I just think, starting the conversation for business owners is really important, because I do run into, when I first run into, potential leads, I think there's a reluctance to talk about it, because in a lot of ways, it's somewhat like going to the dentist, except, you're not going to get clean teeth out of the process of exit planning. But it's something that I think if they can just start the conversation off and talk with an exit planner, talk with their trusted advisor. It doesn't have to be an exit planner. Everybody has a trusted advisor somewhere. So whether that's your accountant or your lawyer or your financial planner, start those conversations off and don't be afraid to talk about them, because the reality is that exit planning should not be a quick event. It actually it's a process, but it really should be addressed years ahead of time, just because there's a lot of things to consider. And considering the financial wealth that's tied up in your business and the importance of that business to that business owner, they really do owe it to themselves to start planning years ahead of time.
For business owners listening who would love to speak with you and perhaps get your help, how can they find you and connect with you?
You can go to my website at valueacceleration.ca. I've got lots of interesting articles about exit planning. They can subscribe to my newsletter, and I have some new assessments on board that they could take and start the education process, and we can start the conversation off.
This has been terrific. David, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. My pleasure.
That was David Prowse, principal of Velorum Business Advisory, and the segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals finally get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.